Hi, I'm Kalena Tano.
And I'm Jayne Frishia.
And this is On the Other Foot, a no-holds-barred look at the world of dance.
Each week, we bring you a podcast on nutrition, lifestyle, and mental health for regular people who happen to dance.
Every Tuesday, we're going to take on a topic in the dance world that isn't spoken about enough and approach it honestly for our listeners. Isn't that nice of us?
All right, so hello everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Other Foot. So in case you missed part one of this interview, which you would be very sad to miss because it was great. It was posted 2 weeks ago today. Today, we're here with Jeff and Kay McLean, creators of the San Diego-based dance project Lightheart Dance Art. Through their photography, the McLeans have worked not only with young dancers in their training years, but also with professional soloists and principal dancers with companies like San Diego Ballet and Ballet Nacional de Cuba. Last week, we talked all about the Lightheart Dance Art photographic process, and this week we're going to focus on why photography is essential in dance, especially in the development of a young dancer's artistry. So, to kick us off, we would like to hear a little bit about your views from behind the camera and your opinions. How does photography intertwine with the world of dance?
So it's interesting that it is, in some ways, it's very similar, but it's very parallel, but it's really different in other ways. And so the photography part is, so from dance coaches or dance studios, a lot of times they don't even really want the dancers getting sidetracked into like social media or something. That's just a distraction from them focused on their dance. And so it in some ways there's that aspect of it where the social media, just everything involved with social media can become a distraction to dance. But there's also the part of it where you see what other people are doing. And I heard your podcast on the summer intensives, and you were talking about how you get to see where other people are at, and you see yourself next to other people your age or maybe older even, and where they're at and where you're at. And so I think for a lot of dancers, that's part of it, is just to see what everybody else is doing and where they fit in the scale of abilities and the range of dancers. So that's part of it. And there was a dancer that we were working with, and she was Clara in a dance performance, and I sent her a DM and said, "Oh, we'd love to do a shoot with you." And her mom said afterwards, after the shoot, that it wasn't until she'd done that shoot that she felt like she was a dancer, but that's when she felt like she was really a ballerina. And so that was touching. I mean, you feel sometimes like you help somebody along their path sometimes. And so not always, but sometimes you can make a difference for people. And if we do really well, then the photos that come out of it are going to be better than they expect. And they're going to see themselves better than they expected. And they'll see really how good they are. Because I think a lot of dancers have a lot of self-doubt. I think to be an artist, it means to have self-doubt, right? If you're not always questioning, is this the best I can do, then you're not pushing yourself. And so, but that also has a negative aspect where you're always second guessing yourself. And so in that way, I think it can kind of level set things to say, no, this is really, you're doing really well, and this is where you're at, and that's important. And so it has parallel aspects, but at the same time, there are dancers that are fabulous on Instagram and have a wonderful account, and they're not a very good dancer. And conversely, there's really great dancers that have the most boring Instagram account you've ever seen. So they're not, they're parallel, but there's really big differences.
You've really got the ballet world understood. You guys get it.
Yeah.
You guys get it better than I think a lot of dancers do. There's so much truth and like that is a really touching story about that girl, and the fact that Instagram has become such a big part of dance that you feel the need to get an Instagram validation on top of like your studio's validation or your self validation or the parts you're getting. But also it's very true what you said, that there are dancers with like rockin' Instagrams, and then you see them in an audition one day and you're like, oh no, they're here, but then you dance next to them and you're like, wait, what?
You're like, maybe I
But
should
yeah.
update my Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that for me, like, I remember my first experience with like taking photos or doing like a photo shoot was the studio company at my home studio, which they still do this now. Every year for Nutcracker, to make the ads, we would do like a studio company photo shoot, and everybody on studio company got to do it, and we all got, it didn't even matter like what role we got. They just like picked random costumes for us to wear, and then we like took nice photos in them, and those were the photos that got used for like our flyers that year. And I just remember being a little bit uncomfortable because it was my dance teacher that was taking the photos. So for me, it was kind of both. It was a little bit of the training pressure, but it was also the photography pressure at the same time. But I do remember feeling very like, I mean, it was my freshman year of high school, so a lot of things were changing for me. I was becoming an adult in my own brain. But I remember being there and seeing the photos and being like, wow, like that's really a photo of me. Like I don't look half bad in that. I think that the first time you see a good dance photo of yourself, rather than just like, here's my recital costume and my mom took a picture of me in it, the first time you see a picture that was like made for you, that's just you, is really touching and valuable. And I think that that's a very markable change in somebody's artistry when they see like, wow, I can really do this. Like I can really look like that. That's kind of cool. All right, so what would you guys say a dancer gains from having a portfolio of professional photos, aside from the obvious benefits of audition photos and performance photos and the like? Can photography affect the confidence and artistic mindset of a dancer? I know we've kind of dipped into this, but just a little more specifically.
And I guess also, if I may add to this question, do you ever have dancers who are specifically like, I am here for this photo shoot because I am doing company auditions this year and I need to impress them? Like, does that ever happen?
No, never has happened. And so what we're doing too is a little bit different. So we're not really doing so much the headshot and audition photo stuff, which tends to there. I mean, that's a certain style, and this and the studio or the company is looking for a very specific thing, right? They're not looking for art. They're looking for a straightforward presentation of the ability of the dancer. And the headshot is, no Photoshop, clean white light, smooth background. So they're looking for almost a minimalist kind of photo of the dancer. Nothing else matters. So they're looking in at the person and nothing else. And for us, it's more about trying to like create a work of art, and so the background does matter, and the a wisp of hair that's flying in the wind can be magic, and that really doesn't matter so much for headshots or company audition photos. So it's different in that way, and so yeah, that's a very different part of it. And I forgot the first part of the question.
It's okay, I can say it again. What would you say a dancer gains from having a portfolio of really professional photos, aside from just audition photos and performance photos and kind of these things that you automatically get during your career as a dancer? Like we all have our photo taken. So what would you say is the gain that you get from having your own photo shoot, your own portfolio of pictures that people have taken of you?
So it's different for every dancer, but dancers typically don't get paid lots, and so they're not independently wealthy and got the whole summer off. So you need something to do in the summer. So there's lots of dancers are looking for a second deal for the summer, and that may be Disneyland, or it may be dancing at SeaWorld, or teaching, whatever it is. They've got a second thing that they're trying. So having a strong account, I think, helps them. I mean, it shows their art and their artistry, and And so that's a very different thing than for a company shoot. And then also a lot of dancers are models too. So they'll do model photos. And so for model photos, they want to look. There's kind of a stylized way that photographers will often shoot in fashion shoots and things. So they want that stylized, very artistic look that's not, the headshot with the bare shoulders in black and white. And so there are things about it, but I think mostly it's about self-confidence and and part of it too is that as an entertainer in any of the industries, you're only an entertainer if you have an audience. And to especially a younger dancer, if you don't have an audience of any kind, are you really an entertainer? And it's kind of an interesting question. But Instagram kind of, I think, really kind of bridges that, in that it allows a dancer to show what their ability is. And for some, and it's different for everybody, but for some, they get a lot of attention through Instagram from an audience, and they start building an audience. And I don't know if you have 1 million followers, if you're more likely to get a spot with a company. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the company figures you'll get the word out a little better because you have a big audience. But I don't think you really are going to get a spot at some studio or some company because you've got a great Instagram. So it's a lot about how you are personally feeling about yourself and presenting yourself. And I think in some ways it's kind of like dressing really nice, or having your hair done really well, and looking really your best to the world. And it's kind of a reflection of that. And so, I mean, everybody knows that there's bad sides to social media and difficult things, but in some ways, and for some people, it really is a way to build an audience and have a conversation with an audience, and really start understanding an audience before they're professionally on a stage.
That's a really great way to look at it. Yeah, I've never thought about that as sort of like, because we talked in an earlier part of this interview about how like it is different from performing, but I think that that's an important similarity to point out. And we'll kind of get into that like a little bit in the next question. But even if your audience is just your photographer, in a way you are performing for them, and in a way, especially if you were young and impressionable, I'm sure it can feel like a performance. And I've never personally, well, I'm sure deep down I've thought like, oh, this is a performance, I'm performing for the camera, but consciously I've never really made the connection. So I think that that's just a very insightful way of
Mm-hmm.
looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's very interesting to hear your guys' perspective about social media too, because for us, like, we are kind of, I don't know, generation, I don't know if that's weird to say, but our like age is very focused on like social media is everything, but like also social media doesn't matter, and like I don't need to be validated here, and blah blah blah. There's so many, like, me personally growing up, I heard so many different discourses from people, because social media was not brand new when I was growing up, but I was in one of the first generations to really grow up with it. And I just remember growing up and always being so conflicted about how to feel about my Instagram, because some people would tell me like, oh, you should be using your Instagram to try and get out there, and you should be trying to build your audience and all of this. And then I would have other voices out there being like, social media is awful, like nobody should do it, we should get rid of it, like blah blah blah, shut down Instagram, things like that. And I've heard so many different things over the years, so it's very interesting to hear how, especially because you guys kind of built this project from the ground up because of your social media presence and because of connections that you made through social media. And I just think that that's super interesting how that I don't know, that just kind of point of view of being able to build an audience and having your social media be an audience, and how that's okay. Because I think that a lot of times we put down people who use Instagram as a way to perform for people, or like, oh, she's just posting that to get attention, or like, oh, she's just posting that because blah blah blah, whatever reason it's like bad to post pictures of yourself on social media. And I think it's very interesting to hear about how there's value behind that and how it's okay to want to consider social media as your audience, and these are people I'm performing for and I'm putting myself forward. I think that that's really cool.
I don't think there's any artist that only wants to become famous once they're gone and they're dead and then become wildly famous. That seems like getting robbed, right? It is, you know, maybe likes don't mean anything, but it's kind of like applause, right? Where when people are liking it, it is a positive feedback, and it does make you feel good, and you know, it's just there are other aspects though of social media that are just so powerful and so beneficial, and it's just changed everything about society, I think, and I think for the better. And the community, for us, it's really easy, very straightforward. If we're talking to a dancer, say, just go on our stream and find somebody you know and ask them. And I mean, you know, you think about that before social media, totally impossible. You know, it was a very different world then, and so especially in a small community like dance, your reputation precedes you, and it's a lot of that is through social media, and people, you know, that's a really powerful communication means, and I think it's really, I have really gotten a lot out of it, and I'm, you know, the community and the group of friends that we have, and so the people we've met, it's all been through social media.
Yeah, I think you're totally right in saying that your reputation does often precede you on social media. In fact, because I've known people who, like, obviously you guys built your business up on Instagram. I've known people who have built their reputation up on Instagram, and I've also known people who have who have been torn down on Instagram. And sometimes I think that we do try to have a separation of real life versus Instagram, and in some ways, like you're saying, there is a separation there. But I do think that you can tell if you are a person of good character, your rapport on Instagram reflects such, and if you are a person of bad character, I do think that that eventually sees the light in some kind of public way, and the public way we know now is Instagram. And so I think you guys are completely right that building a rapport of your business by saying, well, just go find someone you know who we've worked with and talk to them. Like, don't hear it from us. Actually ask for a real life experience that someone you trust has had. I agree with you that that's completely invaluable. I also, here, I've never done this before. Kalena, can I say that that's a really great part of it to end the first half of the interview on? And I'm going to throw us to a break.
Yes.
Cool.
Do it. I was wondering. I could kind of sense it in the way you were talking. I was like, Jayne's going to do the throw it to a break for the first time in her life.
I never throw it to a break. All right. And on that note, I'm going to throw us to our mid-episode break. You may or may not hear about our sponsors or a small...
Hi, Kalena here. Before we get back into this amazing interview, I wanted to take a moment to talk about how you can support On the Other Foot. If you haven't yet, be sure to check us out on our Patreon, which is linked from our website and Instagram. Patrons receive extra VIP benefits like free merch, early access to episodes, and in-episode credit for supporting our podcast. Thank you, patrons, for your continuing support of our pod.
Okay, and we are back here on the Other Foot with Jeff and Kay McLean of Light Heart Dance Art. And we're having an awesome conversation with them. We're going to keep it going for just a little longer. So we've kind of talked about, we've really hit on like how you guys make younger dancers comfortable in the photo shoot, the way they express their artistry. But from a dancer's perspective, we're curious if when you work with younger dancers, you can tell if they have had solo experience before. So some studios do Youth American Grand Prix and some studios don't. But if you are at a studio who does YAGP, usually you are one of the few younger dancers who has a lot of solo experience, which is uncommon for your age. Does that show in their attitude in a photo shoot? Do they come with like a greater skill set? And is there a photographic value behind YAGP that we aren't really aware of as dancers?
Yes. The short answer, yeah. So we also work with, besides ballerinas, we work with a lot of contemporary dancers. And so it's very common for them, typical for them, to be doing a lot of competitions. And so in the competitions, they'll have their solo. And so for contemporary dancers, especially younger contemporary dancers, tend to be ahead of ballet dancers in their self-confidence in their solos. They'll come out busting moves, they've got a whole series of stuff they want to do typically. And but there's differences. But YAGP is, and I'm sure you guys have seen all the different aspects of it. So it's I always encourage the dancers, especially the ones that have done really well in YGP and they get invited to New York. I'm like, put that in your bio. Oh my gosh, why would you not? And so it's somebody that does extremely well at YGP. It means a lot. Not doing well in YGP doesn't mean anything. You don't know anything, but when somebody goes to New York, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best in the world or anything, but they've gotten a lot of experience when they do that, and they're strong. So they've been judged to be strong, and so you can have a high level of confidence that they're a strong dancer, and that they've had a lot of background in, they've been on stage by themselves. So they've got a lot higher confidence level, and probably doing well in YGP is a reflection of their confidence level too. So I mean, it all kind of goes together. But yeah, so I think that solos, competitions, all of that, it's all about, can you get into that high pressure situation? Like, okay, you're on, and the audience is packed. It's a full house. Go do it. And that's a high pressure situation. So all of the competitions and YAGP and all of that stuff, it's kind of like just preparing a dancer for that day when full house, lights come up, all right, go. Because that's a very highly stressful situation. So it's a way to learn how to deal with that stress and put it in a box somewhere, not let it affect you.
I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting.
I think
that you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things that you said there was that winning YGP means everything, but not winning YGP means nothing. Like, I think it's really interesting, the sentiment, kind of what we were talking about. We've been talking about Instagram so much. So, some dancers, you go to their bio and they say, oh, YGP silver medalist 2 times, 2017, 2018, whatever. It has all this specific stuff about what years they've won and things like that. But if you go to a dancer, like, nobody puts in their bio, I lost YGP. I didn't get anything at YGP. I mean, you could, but nobody does, because it doesn't matter. And like, if I go to a dancer's Instagram and I don't see that, like, I'm not like, oh, there's not any YGP medals in there, because I also know people who, don't put it in their bio. So I think that sentiment is one that's really important. I mean, I know this is kind of a side topic, the whole dance competition world, and like the effects that has on young dancers, but I think that that's a really important thing to remember, is that, if you win, that's awesome. If you don't win, it doesn't matter. Like, there's really nothing, you're not really missing out on much other than a very like special opportunity to go perform a little more and learn. But as long as you got up on that stage and you perform by yourself, that's experience, and that's really cool. So yeah, I think that that's really good for young dancers to hear.
I think that's very parallel to the things you guys were talking about in your podcast on the summer intensives, right? So even just doing a tryout, you learn a lot from that, and you get a lot of experience from it. Even if you don't get into the company summer intensive you wanted, it still has a lot of value.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
The most important thing you can do as a young dancer is experience. And sometimes experience is YGP, sometimes experience is a summer intensive, and like we're talking about now, sometimes experience is really building the confidence to be in front of a camera and to get your, like, be able to present your best self to a photographer. I also wanted to just not like run away from the fact that you guys pointed out that younger contemporary dancers often have more confidence than younger ballet dancers. Just because we like make these podcasts in mind with the idea that either younger dancers or maybe dancer like studio artistic directors, potentially other teachers, could be listening to this. And that's something I also noticed coming to college, where the dance program has a mixed styles. Like we are taught jazz, modern, and ballet. And you can definitely tell, like the competition kids and the kids who maybe grew up in contemporary, uh, they do, even at my age, have more confidence, or things roll off them more easily because they've had more time to really understand what it is to just be them on a stage. Whereas ballet dancers are usually told, stand in the corps de ballet until we think you're good enough to not stand in the corps de ballet, and even then maybe we will still throw you back into the corps de ballet. And so I
Yeah,
think that that's
yeah.
an interesting perspective, like for teachers to hear, that giving kids solo opportunities does affect their confidence.
Yeah, I think that even for me too, like I didn't start ballet until I was 10, so I didn't really get the very young age part of it, but I was doing gymnastics that whole time, and from the time I was 7 to when I was 11, I competed gymnastics routines completely by myself and doing stuff that sometimes was a little bit too hard for me completely by myself. And now I'm a gymnastics coach, and the differences in the young gymnasts that I work with versus the young dancers that I work with is so interesting to me. And the way that even though they've only been doing this for maybe 1 or 2 years, I can already see the difference between kids that are used to going out and showing their stuff in front of everybody all alone versus the kids that are just there to do some group dances and are just learning and haven't really learned that skill of, okay, I'm here by myself, it's just me, no need to freak out, but everybody's watching me. Okay, so kind of the last thing that we're going to move into here as we're finishing up this interview is just what inspires you about working with dancers who aren't yet in their professional careers. We know that there's a lot of value to photographing professionals and these seasoned people who really know what they're doing, and they come in and they already know the poses that they want and everything. But what's the most rewarding part about working with young dancers and also their parents and providing those kids and those parents with beautiful photos that maybe they've never gotten before?
So you mentioned the parents too, and for it's almost universally true that it's going to be I mean, there are guys, and we've worked with guys, but the vast majority are women, are girls, and it's virtually always a mother-daughter pair, and you're talking to both of them at the same time. And so they're a team and they operate as a team, and you're always going to talk to them as a team. And so that's an important concept that I think some people miss. And then there's kind of the stereotype of the stage mom and all that, but we've never really run into that. And maybe it's just because of what we're doing, and maybe there are tougher moms out there at performances, but we just don't. And so these mother-daughter pairs, and so it's about the moms typically are wanting their daughter to look their absolute best, right? Try to get their best performance they can possibly do. And so in a way, might be a bit surprising that a lot of professional dancers, they're dancing all the time. They're on stage all the time. They're done paying their dues. They've paid lots of money for their training for lots of years, and now they're out there a professional, and they're not earning lots of money. They're working really hard for what they earn, and so to go do a photo shoot on the weekend, it's just like another day at work for them. And so they're not really excited about it typically. They're not really like, oh, I can't wait. They're not like thinking about it all week. They're just like, oh yeah, Saturday at 3, I got to do that thing. And so in general, and so often a professional kind of is not giving it 100%. They're not going to get hurt, no way on a photo shoot. And so they're not like excited to be there, and they're not excited to do it. Whereas I think the ones that give, so really, so this is a very important point for me, and one of the things I get out of it is when we're there, this is a private performance for us. And so we're really working with really top dancers that do a private performance for us. And that's really touching, and it's very amazing that we're let into that world. But around probably 14, 15, 16, around in that age, 17, those are the dancers that it means something to. It's important to them. They're trying to build an audience. They want to have great photos in their Instagram so that people see that they're where they have come. And usually at that age too, they're improving dramatically. And so whatever they did last year, they don't want anybody to see that. They want to see what they can do this year. And so a lot of the younger dancers are just, they're excited, they're happy, they're giving it 100%. Like we were mentioning before, we have to calm them down sometimes.
They're always full of life. The little ones, they're ready to go. They'll try anything you ask them to do. Even if they know they can't, they're good. They'll just keep going. And yeah, they just have fun. The little ones are just balls of energy. I have a lot of fun with the little ones. And also I get caught up in watching them. I forget what my light's doing, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm back into the game here, I got it. But yeah, the little ones and the moms are just always so happy and having fun with them. So
yeah, I think that's so great.
Yeah,
you go, Jayne.
It's inspiring. Sorry, I get cut out for a minute. It's inspiring to hear, I think, what you guys are inspired by, because you're right. I think even you said it's up to 17, you're so excited for it. I'm only 20 now, but I do agree that there does become an essence of, okay, this is the thing I do now, and I've decided I want to do this for a long time. So I'm in this for the long haul, and you start to become a little bit more jaded to the ballet world, and you start to have more experiences dancing professionally, and maybe you don't like all of them. And so yeah, when you get an opportunity that would have been super, super cool when you were 14, 15, 16, you take it a little bit for granted, and we shouldn't, because every day that you get to dance or be photographed dancing is a blessing as a dancer. But it just kind of takes me back to, I remember how excited I would get for any little opportunity I was when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. And yeah, it is a fun age for a dancer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that's another thing that's so important to hear. And I keep going back to like, oh, this person is listening, they would like to hear that. This person's listening, they would like to hear that. But I think that professional dancers, it's very important for us to remind ourselves of how dancing felt when we were like 9 years old, when we were first starting to do it, when we were learning all of these new things. Because I know for me personally, like that's been a really big challenge in my career, has been, trying to have dancing be my career and my job without making it feel like my job. And I think that, that cliche saying about like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, I think that that's very true. But I also think that you do have to be really careful to make sure that it stays like, this is what I love and not, this is my job. Like it's not supposed to be like, do what you love for work and then it becomes work and then you don't love it anymore. Like it needs to, like, I think that really like childhood, I don't know, it's almost like a childhood innocence. The way that like kids view the world is always so typically looked at as like a cute thing. And I think that in the dance world too, it's such a precious time in our lives that we get to learn all these new things and everything is so exciting. And oh my gosh, I've never done this role before it turns into like, I didn't get that role, oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? And instead it's like, oh, well, I get to do this now, I've never done that before. Like I've heard my little kids be like, they get like some amazing part in a show one year and then they're like in the core the next year and they're like, I'm so excited that I'm in the core this year because I've never done it before. And I'm like, wow, okay, I should maybe tack onto that sentiment a little more.
Yeah, especially because of how fast I think you have to grow up in dance.
As a photographer too, if you have a subject, a dancer that's just excited and having fun and really giving it 100%, that comes through in the photo, and that will be a better photo than a more technically precise dancer that's maybe not having the best time they've ever had and is being technically perfect but kind of passionless about it. And so I'll take the one with all the passion and excitement. It's a better photo.
Yeah, I think that most artistic directors would say that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in shoots that I've done, the ones where I'm having fun look way better than the ones where I thought about what I looked like the whole time. So definitely agree with that.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, I kind of want to just thank you, Jeff and Kay, just so much. I think everything you said in these 2 interviews, like, I've learned a lot. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you. It's been so insightful and educational to get your perspective. So we just want to thank you so much for listening to this interview with Jeff and Kay McLean, creators of Lightheart Dance Art, which is a really esteemed photography duo here in San Diego. You can follow their work on Instagram at lightheart.danceart and get into contact with them through DMs. If you haven't yet, please, we cannot encourage you enough to check out their beautiful work. We promise it will inspire you, and we hope it inspires you to want to work with them. Thank you again just so much to Jeff and Kay, and be sure to tune in to the next episode of On the Other Foot, which will be coming out in 2 weeks' time. Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of On the Other Foot.
We want to connect with you on days other than Tuesday, so be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at otherfoot.pod.
And visit our website to learn more about how On the Other Foot started and join our mailing list.
If you have any questions for me and Jayne, or would like to suggest a topic or guest, email us at ontheotherfoot.podcast@gmail.com.
And please subscribe. It makes a huge difference to us. We want to offer you all discount codes and annoy you with sponsorship ads, and we cannot do that unless you subscribe. So please, do it now.
And above all, thanks for listening. It really means a lot to us. We hope you tune in to On the Other Foot next week for more conversation on the world of dance.